So, friends, you have received your residence permit in Montenegro. Congratulations on that, sincerely. But today, let's talk about what you need to do after obtaining your residence permit. There are still a few more steps you need to take. Let's start with the fact that you, together with your chosen accountant, for example, may need to go to a notary and have 3 documents notarized. The first document is a signature sample for the bank. You have a company. The company must have a bank account. To do this, you need to notarize a signature sample with the notary. We notarize the signature sample. Next, we notarize a power of attorney for representing your interests at the tax office. In other words, essentially for submitting reports. Without this power of attorney, my report simply won't be accepted. And the third document is for representing your interests at the bank. It does not allow the person to sign any documents on your behalf or, well, to make any payments anywhere. It's simply for, well, bringing in payments and submitting them at the counter. If anyone is concerned, this third document is not mandatory. The first 2 are optional. The third does not need to be certified. The only thing is, if we don't notarize it, you'll have to go to the bank yourself every month and pay all the taxes. So it's up to you. Most companies trust me. I mean, first of all, I think I generally inspire trust. Secondly, most of the companies that are registered in Montenegro are not actually operating. They are opened only for residency purposes, and there is only 100 or 200 euros in the account. Accordingly, such amounts don't really cause anyone any concern that I might pay them somewhere I shouldn't. If the company is operating, if it's more or less serious, if it has significant funds, you don't have to leave this power of attorney for the bank. There's no problem, and we'll open the account solely in your name. Go ahead and use it. The only thing is, I'll send you a template every month, a sample for paying taxes, so you can handle the payments yourself. Now, the banks won't open an account for us right away. Yes, we notarize all these documents, leave the notary, go to the bank and submit all the paperwork. They won't open the account for us right away. I know that in many countries this process is done very quickly. Now, in Russia or Ukraine, it takes about an hour. You come in, submit the documents, and they open the account for you on the spot, and you leave satisfied. In Montenegro, things are different. In Montenegro, everything takes a bit more time. After submitting the documents, at some point, maybe in 3 days, maybe in a week, they'll call us and say, everything is ready, everything has been prepared, come in and sign. So once again, we go to the bank, sign the documents, collect the account details, and leave. And after submitting the documents to the bank, I'll talk a bit later about which banks we recommend and why. For now, I'm just outlining the plan for the day. After submitting the documents at the bank, we leave the bank and go to the city administration. At the city administration, you need to certify what's called the Radna Njijika. That's the workbook. Once that's certified, that's it. At this point, everything is done. So we say our goodbyes. Now, let's get back to the banks. First of all, what accounts do we open? At the minimum, we open 2 accounts, sometimes even more. That is, in addition to a domestic account, you might want to open a foreign currency account as well. In other words, a transit account. So you can open just current accounts, or you can also open a transit account if you expect any international payments. Well, in case your company is operating, if your company is operating, most likely you'll also need to open a foreign currency account. If it's not operating, then you only need a domestic account, since that's enough for paying tax. So we open at least 1 account for the company, and sometimes even 2. And we open an account for the individual. This account is absolutely necessary. Even if you keep your money under your mattress, even if you have no savings at all, you still need to open a personal account because your company has to pay taxes, and those are paid by bank transfer. This is mandatory. And one last note about banks. Which banks do we recommend? Let me say right away, I don't take people to just any bank they want. Why? Because with the banks we work with, I have to go there from time to time on business for one company or another. And accordingly, it's easier for me to visit 2 or 3 banks in a day than, say, 6 banks. In other words, it takes a lot of time. That's why I suggest the banks I work with. I don't take clients to other banks. I'm upfront about that. Which banks do we work with? First of all, these are Pervobank and Ipotecarni Bank. Out of all the banks, not just these 2, but all the banks I've dealt with in Montenegro, I like Ipotecarni Bank the most, and I highly recommend it. But in some cases, it's more practical to send a person to Pervobank. For example, if someone doesn't live in Montenegro, I'm not going to go into details right now. I'll just explain briefly. If a person doesn't live in Montenegro, working with many banks will be a bit inconvenient. Therefore, in this case, it is easiest to deal with Pervobank. But overall, I try to give the majority to the mortgage fund. And many people who come to Montenegro after hearing some reviews or reading something want to go with CKB Bank. If you want CKB Bank, we can do that. It's the largest, most well-known, and probably the most technologically advanced bank in Montenegro. I have several companies there, so if someone needs service, including my own company, which has an account at CKB, it's possible. So if someone wants, I can send them there. But honestly, I don't like it, and I don't really recommend it. Why? Yes, they're great in every way, but it's the most popular bank. It's just like in Russia, where the most popular bank is Sberbank. When you go to Sberbank, there are always lines. At a less popular bank, the line is 5 times shorter. It's pretty much the same at CKB. You come in for any issue, and if you only have to wait 20 minutes in line, that's good. Sometimes it's much longer. So the line is much longer than at other banks. I don't like this. That's it. Although overall the bank is good, so for most things I'll just set it aside for the mortgage bank. I strongly recommend this particular bank. I really like it a lot. Next, once we finished everything, wrapped things up with the notary, finished with the various paperwork, and finally picked up our bank details when they were ready. And besides all that, you also need to show up at the tax office. That is, as a director, you have to appear at the tax office. If you have family members, then they need to be registered for health insurance, meaning for free medical care. All of this is mandatory. I actually handle all of this myself, basically without your involvement. Hi, Shepi. So what else should I mention? Yes, we also need to get a health booklet. A health booklet is a document that entitles you to free medical care in all state medical institutions, and in some private ones. This applies if there is an appropriate agreement signed between the private medical institution and the government of Montenegro. For example, in Herceg-Novi, there is the Melina Hospital, which is private, but there is an agreement signed between it and the city administration. Accordingly, with a health booklet, you will be admitted there free of charge. For example, this hospital has a maternity ward. It's the only one, by the way, in our region. And the region is not just Montenegro, it's under a general administration, it's the only one in the area, in the Montenegro region. So with a health booklet, giving birth in this maternity ward is completely free. In order to obtain a health booklet, 2 conditions must be met. First, you must have a residence permit, and not just you, but all family members as well. Second, at least 2 months must have passed since the company was opened. And probably the last question worth considering is, how do you check your accountant? Well, I don't want to say that accountants in Montenegro are bad. Of course, there are some bad ones, but for the most part, they work quite well, are reasonable people, and it's very, very rare for anyone to complain about them. Still, how do you check your accountant? First of all, if your accountant doesn't pay your taxes, your health booklet will stop working. That is, you go to the hospital and they tell you, hello, your booklet doesn't work. You won't be able to receive free medical care today. Go sort out why it isn't working. In reality, it might not work for a number of reasons, but one of the most common and frequent ones is that the taxes haven't been paid. Either you didn't provide the money to pay the taxes, or you gave it with a delay and the deadlines have already passed. Or maybe the accountant just ignored it, forgot, I don't know, for some reason didn't pay. So the first way to check on your accountant is to see whether your health insurance cards are working. The second way, once a year, you will be renewing your residence permit. Before the renewal, your accountant will get a certificate from the tax office and provide it to you, confirming that all your taxes have been paid. If for some reason you have any unpaid taxes, you won't receive this certificate. And accordingly, you go to your accountant and ask, what's going on here? Now, the next method, I'll tell you how I used to do it, and then I'll explain how I do it now. Previously, I used to send bank statements to all companies, to everyone under my service. That is, I send them to each company. But then, at some point, I had so many companies that it just became physically difficult for me to do this. So now I offer the following options. I'll explain exactly what they are in a moment. First, a small digression. I'm offering all this not because people don't trust me. I think, in general, I inspire trust. And besides everything else, most of the companies, most of the entrepreneurs who come from Montenegro open companies only to obtain a residence permit. The companies are not working. That is, there is little money in the account, 100, 200 euros. Accordingly, these aren't amounts that people would really worry about. Yeah. But I do this, I provide this opportunity, so to speak, to let people monitor me for my own, you could say, convenience. Why? Because I don't want a situation where someone comes to me and says, hey, do you remember 3 years ago, back in August of some year, we gave you 200 euros? Did you deposit them into the bank account, or maybe you forgot to deposit them? Let's do a reconciliation. And then you'll be sitting there trying to remember what happened 3 years ago. So to avoid that, it's much easier to keep track of things right away. Because if someone comes to me in 3 years, I'll say, buddy, I offered you the chance to check everything immediately. Why didn't you do it then? Why are you bothering me about those 200 euros now? I don't remember what happened 3 years ago. You should have checked right away. There you go. You had the opportunity to check. You should have used it. That's it. How can you check? As I already mentioned, I stopped sending out bank statements. Now I offer the following options. For those of our clients who are serviced by the mortgage bank, we have connected internet banking for everyone. We didn't set it up in other banks, but we did in the mortgage bank. Accordingly, I give each person access to internet banking and say, please check your account activity as often as you like, once a day, once a month, once a year. You can review your debits and credits. Make sure everything is correct. In other banks, we don't set up internet banking, even though, of course, it's available there too, but it's either inconvenient or not cost effective. For example, at TSKB Bank, you only have a few companies there. As I already mentioned, it's not very convenient to work with them, but there are a few companies. Their online banking system is inconvenient, meaning it's tied to a phone number. I can't link a dozen online banking accounts to my phone number. I would just get confused. So for an accountant, this is very inconvenient. As for PerviBank, connecting to their system is expensive. It's not that it costs a crazy amount of money, but it still costs a little over 100 euros, and people say that's expensive. They don't want to pay that much. That's why I don't connect online banking for PerviBank either. Well, almost for no one, only one company has actually connected to their online banking. But now I've started setting up email notifications for companies. So whenever a transaction goes through, whether a payment is made, a tax is paid, or on the contrary, money comes into the account, or something else happens, in short, whenever any transaction occurs, the bank automatically sends emails, meaning it sends account statements, bank statements by email. We've actually been using this system for many years now, but only my email was connected. That is, so I wouldn't have to go to the bank every time to get statements. Although I noticed that many accounting agencies actually work this way. They run to the bank to get statements. Well, to me, it seems completely absurd to go to the bank every day. My email has been connected there for a long time. Now I've also started connecting clients' emails, so they receive notifications too and can stay informed about the status of their account. Alright, friends. That's all from me for today. I hope this video was helpful. You can ask questions in the comments. Goodbye, everyone.